How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey for Weather SpongeBob. Today is June 28th, 2021, and today we're going to take a look at two tropical disturbances in the Atlantic. We have one that has just formed into Tropical Depression 4 and is likely to become Tropical Storm Danny before landfall between South Carolina and Georgia, and we have another disturbance which has a medium chance of developing at this time. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. So let's begin by taking a look at the water vapor loop for the entire Atlantic. This is Tropical Depression 4, which is just off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia at this point. As you can see, not a lot of convection going on there. And we have another tropical wave, which could be a bigger issue headed into the future, mainly because it has a higher potential of developing into something stronger than Tropical Depression 4. So let's begin by taking a look at this tropical wave moving through the Atlantic, which has just moved just west of the 40 degree mark. Latitude wise, I forgot I forgot which is it, latitude or longitude. I apologize if I'm wrong, but you see that the tropical wave is right in the main development region right now, and it doesn't have a lot of convection clearly, because you see that there's a lot of dry air. There isn't a huge bulk of thunderstorms. You see more thunderstorm activity in the Gulf of Mexico than we do with this tropical wave. So there isn't a lot of convection at this point, and part of the reason why is because it's currently over cooler water temperatures, just cool enough to the point where there won't be a lot of convection out of this. Typically, tropical waves need, of course, sea surface temperatures above the 80 degree mark to really get a lot of convection going and thunderstorm activity going without baroclinic influences. However, since this storm is still over water that's just below the 80 degree threshold, there isn't a lot of thunderstorm activity coming out of it, since water, it's very difficult for tropical waves to really get a huge blow up of thunderstorm activity when it's over temperatures that are below the 80 degree threshold. And that's what's currently happening right now. But of course, as you can see, since we are just west of the 40 west mark, and this storm is quickly moving to the west, it has nowhere to go but to warmer waters up ahead of it. So this does have a really good chance, and it's pretty much going to happen that we're going to see more thunderstorm activity as this heads further westward. I'm assuming the moisture content stays the same and the humidity stays the same, which is likely at this point, and we're going to see the thunderstorm activity increase as the storm heads further and further westward. We do have a little bit of dry air in this region. However, it is moving to the west, so it shouldn't be a major problem headed into the future, but still something to keep in mind. And in terms of the chance of this storm to develop over the next several days, you're going to see that you're gonna see that currently the National Hurricane Center is giving this a 20% chance of development within the next 48 hours, so a low chance within the next 2 days. However, that chance increases if you go beyond 48 hours to 40% between the next 5 days, as it seems like the National Hurricane Center and the computer models are detecting that there's going to be a little bit more favorable conditions as this heads further westward. And as you could probably tell based off of the forecasted path of this tropical wave, you see that it's going a very long distance within a 5-day period, which shows that it's going to move fairly quickly to the west. So for those in the Caribbean islands, you won't have that much time to prepare if this does develop into a tropical storm. And even if it doesn't develop into a tropical storm, you guys won't have a lot of days to prepare for some heavy rain. So you guys need to keep in mind in the Caribbean islands that this storm will move very quickly to the west, so you need to be aware of it at this point, especially since now it has a medium chance of developing a 40% chance of tropical cyclone formation. Taking a look at the GFS model to see if this will develop or not, there's going to be several factors we need to keep in mind. Of course, the relative humidity will be important. You see that, like I showed you in the water vapor imagery, there's a lot of dry air currently just to the west of this storm. So we need to see how much dry air really entrains this storm. However, based off of what the GFS model is saying, there should be enough moisture to the point where it should be able to support itself. And what's interesting is that the GFS model is sort of taking this tropical wave further southward. So there might be a shift in the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center further southward. Now that the GFS model is taking a track further southward, and it does develop this into, I'd say, a low-end tropical storm, right? Just south of the Caribbean islands. You see that the pressure begins to drop as far down as 999 millibars, which is equivalent to a low-end tropical storm. And while there's going to be a lot of dry air just to the north of it, it seems like the moisture around center circulation is going to be enough to fend off a lot of this dry air. And the thing is that there won't be a ton of wind shear to steer this dry air into this storm, and especially if it takes a track further southward where it's gonna be closer to this monsoon type cycle that's going on right around the equator. It's gonna moisture won't be much of a problem for this. So I'd say that if this storm were to move further southward, there's a better chance that it'll develop, since it'll avoid all the dry air that's just to the north of it that's brought southward by this ridge and this low pressure system that's bringing strong northerly wind component to bring a lot of this dry air further southward. If this low pressure is able to avoid that, then the chances of development greatly increase. But it's not only, of course, water vapor we need to keep in mind over the next several days. We also need to keep in mind of the wind shear in the main development region of the Atlantic with this storm, because that'll be another important factor to determine if this will develop or not. And if we were to move forward, you see that there won't be a ton of wind shear over this storm. There certainly will be some, because there's gonna be an upper level high that's going to be just to the north of it, and we have a little bit of an upper level low right here that's going to bring some strong upper level westerly wind component in the upper levels. So there will be at least some wind shear. If we were to take a look at the wind shear in this area to see how the wind direction and speed changes with height, and you see that in the upper levels of the atmosphere the wind direction greatly changes. So there is going to be some wind shear, and I think that's going to prevent it from really rapidly intensifying. However, like I said, it won't be a ton of wind shear to the point where it can't develop at all, as tropical systems are able to fend off this wind shear. And there's still uncertainty regarding how much wind shear there will exactly be, as wind shear is very difficult to forecast. It really all depends on the positioning of this upper level high and this upper level low, and that's not very easy to predict. So we need to keep in mind of how much wind shear there will be over the next several days right around the Caribbean to see if this will develop or not. Right now, I'd say the wind shear is light to moderate at this point, and while it is possible for it to develop, it won't develop very rapidly under these conditions. But there is still that possibility that maybe the wind shear lightens and becomes lighter than what the computer models like the GFS model are expecting. So we gotta wait and see. But even moving forward, the GFS does expect the wind shear to greatly wind down, as it expects sort of this upper level low that's bringing the wind shear to move further northward, and this ridge is also expected to move further northward to the point where the upper level winds will move northward. So there could be an area beyond going into the 4 to 5 day mark where it does have a pretty good chance of developing. And you see at the 6th day mark, the wind shear is very light in this region, and that's concerning to see that the wind shear lightens as we move forward, because that means that there could be the chance that over the next several days the percentage of tropical cyclone formation increases if this trend continues, if we continue to see the wind shear very light in this region. But again, there's still a lot of uncertainty. We need to wait and see. But as of right now, it seems like the GFS is lenient on bringing some sort of tropical storm just south of the Caribbean islands. Taking a look at the European model, the latest run, you're gonna see that. If we move forward, the European is certainly bringing some cyclonic vorticity just south of the Caribbean islands. So it seems like now both of the computer models are lenient on bringing this storm further southward of the Caribbean islands. But the good news is that the European doesn't expect this to really grow, to really strengthen that much more than what it is right now. So at this point, the current trend seems to be is bringing a low-end tropical storm just south of the Caribbean islands. And while a low-end tropical storm might not seem like a lot, you guys still in the Caribbean islands certainly needs to be aware of this over the coming days. If we were to take a look again at the forecasted path of this disturbance, you see that it might be concerning for those in the southeastern United States because every tropical disturbance that sort of takes this direction, it's always a concern since it looks like beyond the 5-day mark, it's going to go straight towards the southeast. However, there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding the forecast, so you don't want to make assumptions just yet, but it's at least good to be aware of this in the southeastern United States, especially closer to Florida, since this is still going towards your direction, even if we can't forecast which exact direction it's going beyond the 5-day mark. So at least be aware of this, especially in the state of Florida, in the southeastern United States. So medium chance of development. It seems like computer models are leaning towards bringing a low-end tropical storm. So I wouldn't be surprised if during the next update the chance of tropical cyclone formation becomes slightly higher. But again, we need to wait and see how the wind shear turns out over the next several days, because that'll be key in determining how if this tropical disturbance develops or not. And another thing that could prevent this from developing is how fast it's moving. Since this storm is moving so fast to the west, that means that the southern side of the storm the winds on the southern side of the storm won't be as strong, because the momentum from the lower level and the upper level winds are pushing against the winds on the southern side of the storm. So it might prevent a full circulation from occurring to the point where it could develop into a tropical storm. So also the speed of the storm will determine it, because if this moves slower than expected, then there's a higher chance this will develop, since there's more likely of a chance that a full circulation will occur because the winds coming from the east are weaker, which means that the southern side of the storm, the winds on the southern side of the storm will be just strong enough to support a full circulation for a tropical cyclone development. So we need to keep in mind of the speed of this storm as well. So at least be aware of this in the Caribbean islands and the southeast United States, because it is certainly something to watch. But it is not the only disturbance we're watching. We're also watching Tropical Depression 4, which just formed earlier this morning. It is currently 35 miles per hour. It is moving west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. And taking a closer look at it right now, you see that it barely looks like any sort of tropical storm. It looks like a regular, average, everyday thunder shower you see during the summertime. And in fact, you see a lot more convection in the Gulf of Mexico, and you do see embedded in this tropical depression right here, as there's not a lot of thunderstorm activity. There's a lot of dry air on the eastern side of this storm. And even on the western side, the thunder showers and thunderstorm activity is very scattered. Taking a look at the current radar map for South Carolina and Georgia at this point, you see that the thunderstorms are just very scattered. Does not look like an organized tropical depression at this point. And however, it is considered a tropical depression, as the National Hurricane Center has detected that there's just enough convection and just enough rotation within the center circulation to consider this a tropical depression, and the winds are just strong enough. If we were to take a look at the current winds right now, you see that a lot of the strongest winds are on the northern side of this storm, and it makes sense because, of course, the northeastern side of most tropical cyclones in the Atlantic is the strongest portion, since it is the portion that receives coincides sort of with the trade winds. And we see pretty much and there's a pressure gradient between a ridge that's just to the north of the storm and this tropical depression. Right now, there's a pretty big ridge dominating the western Atlantic at this point, bringing just very high temperatures in the northeast. But outside of that, it's steering the storm into South Carolina and Georgia, as it should make landfall within a couple hours very soon, and it is currently expected to develop into a tropical storm. If we were to take a look at the National Hurricane Center forecasted path of this storm, you see that this is expected to make landfall as a tropical storm, but it should be a low-end tropical storm, as tropical storm warnings are issued in some of the coastal cities in South Carolina and just outside of Charleston. So you need to keep in mind of tropical storm force conditions. Elevated surf, certainly rip current should be a threat. So even though this tropical storm tropical depression might not seem like a major deal, you want to stay away from the ocean, because there still could be life-threatening rip current risk along the shore. And this even extends further north to North Carolina, because like I showed you, the winds are extending further northward into the southern coast of North Carolina. So you need to keep in mind that rip current risk and high surf along the coast. And of course, there's going to be rain showers with it, not a ton, but there's certainly going to be that rain threat, and it will be a little gusty. So make sure to bring those loose things inside, especially if you're along the coast. But outside of that, it shouldn't be a major threat, I'd say, which is certainly good news. And then this should weaken into a depression headed into the state of Georgia and eventually Tennessee headed into Tuesday night. So the good news is this won't be much of a threat, but this is likely to develop into a tropical storm Danny, and it will be our fourth named storm, and we're only in the month of June, which isn't considered a very active month. So all the signs are pointing towards a more active than usual hurricane season. So we need to keep a close eye on the hurricane season headed forward and our next disturbance and tropical wave moving through the Atlantic. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. I hope you guys have a good day.